So, do you know what this Wednesday is? If you grew up Catholic like me, you probably do. It's Ash Wednesday. And we're not Catholic in unity, but there are energies when people practice something. And there are energies in practices that have been around for a long time that can have deep, deep meaning in our lives when we take them on and when we allow them to change us. And so as this week, we are kicking off the Lenten season, the time that leads up to Easter. It is for each of us to decide if these days leading up to Easter are going to be like any other days. Are they going to be like normal days, normal weeks? Will we be the same person today that we will be on Easter Sunday? Now, there's nothing wrong with answering yes to that question, right? But I have found that this practice of Lent can be incredibly transformative, especially when we do it the unity way. Now, growing up in the Catholic Church, we were taught to give up something. Maybe give up something that we love, give up something that was kind of a vice, something that was a treat for us. Probably the most common is giving up chocolate. No one would say pizza because they'd be crazy to try to do that for 40 days. So giving up chocolate. Some people take on giving up smoking cigarettes or something that's not good for them. And this is a great practice because it builds determination. It builds a commitment. But in unity, we take all of our spiritual practices and we go within with them. So what is even more powerful than going on a 40-day diet? What can be even more powerful is engaging in the opportunity that we could let go of something, a habit, a thought, a behavior, let go of something that, unlike a diet, we might go back to. Because, granted, no one's going to give up chocolate forever, right? It's just not going to happen. Well, maybe, but probably only if you have to. No, Steve Epley says it's not going to happen. So, what would it be like if we treated it not as a diet, not as something that like, okay, I do this, I'm going to stop doing this for a little period of time, and then I'm going to take it on again? What would it be like if we check in and tune in and get to something that we know is not serving us, that we really intend to and pray for the strength to release and let go? So that at the end of this time, at the end of this season, it is simply no longer there. It may be something like eating or smoking or doing something like that, but it also might be a thought. It also might be tuning in to a pattern or behavior, because we are, aren't we, so much like computers? I mean, you can not only see with yourself, but sometimes in the world around us, we can see how easily programmable we are. Right? How we can be programmed and how routine we are. You can tell just by the way you feel after someone says something, you can see the automatic response that happens within us. And so much of the year, so much of our lives, that goes unchecked. Well, a spiritual practice, in order to be powerful, has opportunities and times for us to check in. And the fact that so many people are taking on a practice during this time, this 40-day experience, is indicative that there is an energy, a movement, and that we can ride on that power and that energy of the collective. Now, it's no accident that the word Lent, that the Lenten season goes on with the days extending, the days getting lighter, moving into spring. It's a time of expansion. It's a time to start taking those seeds and for those seeds to start germinating, for the roots to come down and for growth to happen. So do we want our growth to happen from something that is unsettled, something that has some seeds that we might not want to have grow or multiply? There's a book that I read a long time ago called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. Feelings buried alive never die. If we go along unconsciously growing in this season of lengthening, we will get what we've always gotten. And again, No problem with that. We can show up for that. We can be present to that. This is not to create a war within ourselves. It is not to hate something. It is not to try so hard to push something away, but it is to recognize the power of our mental faculties and the power of our minds. We so often undervalue and underemphasize how we show up for ourselves. You can make a difference in your brain. Do you believe that? You are not your thoughts. Do you believe that? You're not your thoughts, yet one of Unity's principles is that our thoughts create our reality, no? So if left unchecked, if we move with every thought, we sometimes create a reality that we don't love so much. One of the first times I took on this practice, I had the most powerful experience. Because I used to really, really struggle with something. And I was vigilant for the 40 days. I just declared it. For this 40 days, I am fasting from blank. You fill in the blank yourself. I am fasting from this, knowing that, and then you put in your affirmation. So I am fasting from whatever it is, knowing that, and then you affirm, knowing that something positive, knowing the way that I really want to show up for things, knowing a truth of being. And I did it every single time. I was aware of it. I watched it, and I replaced the habit and the pattern. And there was a big shift within me. That shift wasn't just because I said different things in my mind, but it was because I had a checkpoint, and at that checkpoint, I questioned my thoughts. And when I questioned my thoughts, I opened my mind up for different possibilities, for different realities to be seen that otherwise I would not have seen as options. They were there all along, of course. They were possibilities all along. But my brain was trained to experience one thing. Just like a trail in the woods. If people go along a hiking trail and they take the same trail and another person takes the trail and another person takes the trail, well, you get grooves in the ground. The same thing happens with our brain. The same thing happens with our being. And so when we talk about this Lent practice, when we talk about this Wednesday, and I invite you to take some time on Wednesday night to really sit with this, create a sacred space and sit with whatever affirmation and denial you're using. And really make a commitment to yourself. The year that I did this so strongly, there were a couple of factors that I think made it more powerful than other times that I've done it. And one thing is that other times I've done it, I tried to take on a few things. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I'd like to give up this and that and this and that and this and that. Or you might try to take on something that's just a little too much at the surface. It's just not deep enough. We didn't dive deep enough to go, is there a pattern here? I'm just not liking this. Is there a pattern here? What's underneath that pattern? What's underneath that pattern? What's the core belief? What is the core error belief that I am holding on to that is making all of these things my experience? Another thing is just focusing on the affirmation. In Unity, we talk a lot about the affirmations, but the denial is incredibly important when it comes to what Phil Morris talked about as like crystallized ideas. Ideas that are so ingrained in us that it's almost like you need a chisel to get them out. That just saying light things is not enough. Putting love over feelings buried alive, never die, doesn't do anything but create mangled love. Marianne Williamson talked about denials and affirmations, and she, in an attempt to give it more depth, said something referring to the idea that a denial is not just looking past something. It's not just looking past something and acting like it's not there, right? But it's actually looking to it and then looking through it. It's actually really being able to presence it, to presence what you see in your experience, to honor that experience, to honor how you feel. And then from there, to declare and to create the knowing, to stand in your knowing that even this has no power over me. claiming back your power. There are incredibly powerful experiences of using this practice. Anyone can look into oppression and our history of slavery to see how people have been able to demonstrate their own power over their own inner sanctuary in the midst of incredible difficulty. The Holocaust, Hitler. If you've seen any of the films on the Holocaust, you see these stories of incredible triumph of the spirit, of the internal sanctuary, of the internal realm of being, even when faced with the most devastating outer circumstances. The Dalai Lama is one that demonstrates that continuously. That we have an incredible ability within, not to deny things, not to live in an airy-fairy world. Charles Fillmore, was not a light and fluffy, airy-fairy person. He was very practical. He was very science-oriented. He was a straight shooter. And he showed that these principles over and over can work if we're willing to work them. Charles Fillmore, in the book Keep a True Lent, said, I turn away from the belief in negation and my thinking changes. I rid my consciousness of limited thoughts that have encumbered and darkened my understanding. He says, by affirmation, we claim and appropriate that which is ours. Each affirmation helps us to build up a substantial, firm, unwavering state of mind because it establishes truth in consciousness. So if we practice it enough, and if our affirmation is based in truth, then it is surrounded by light. It is a magnet. And the parts of our being that have been attracted in the past to a limited idea or a limited thought are now drawn into this light. One of my very favorite Unity authors, many of you know this, is Sig Paulson. And Reverend Sig Paulson said this in Your Power to Be. He said, be willing to give up old concepts, religious or otherwise, as soon as you've grown out of them. Just as easily as light dispels darkness in our outer world, your understanding will free you from the misconceptions, superstitions, and other limitations of your past. You may become aware of some of the old beliefs as the light eliminates them from your consciousness. He said, I cannot stress too strongly the work you do in your own consciousness through meditation and the introduction of new ideas into your inner system of thought and feeling. Any miracle that takes place happens in you as greater understanding, a freer flow of radiant energy, a new insight into your own potential as the light of the world. As in all things worthwhile, you may find that it takes discipline, faith, and strength to change some of the unenlightened patterns of mind and heart. It reminds me of a sign I once saw over a business firm's front entrance. He says, it's hard for an old rake to turn over a new leaf. He says, it may seem difficult at first, but as soon as you will find that the words of Jesus, as soon as you do, you will find the words of Jesus have new meaning. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. So let's take a moment to just settle in, to become still, to become quiet, to allow ourselves to be present to a pattern. You may already know what is up for you. You may just allow something to surprise you. Allow your mind to become loose and just drift over anything that may be here to release. You may scan your experiences to see what most frustrates you, to ask for any wording that you may consciously or unconsciously repeat in your mind that may be just an old pattern or an old program, maybe something that someone said to you that without knowing you took on for yourself. maybe a trigger that happens over and over again. Maybe something that you lost hope in. There may be something here that you've made an agreement with that is beneath your divine potential, that you never consciously tried or intended to make an agreement with. You may not even believe that you accept or do make an agreement with, but somehow it's there in your experience, so you're willing to try on the possibility that you may have agreed to allow this into your mind. And you may be willing to lovingly release it. So just breathe into that in the silence. What is it for me in this season that if I am willing to remove my agreement from practicing this idea, this behavior, this thought, that I will be a new person at the end? Where is it in my life that I am no longer willing to settle for this limited experience or this destructive pattern or this hurt or limitation? Maybe it's giving up comparison or projection, confusion, pity, gossip, lack, a sense that one is not whole, a self-diagnosis, an idea that somehow the universe is not for you, or that you don't get or deserve what others have, that there is somehow not enough. And just allow that to come to mind. You may have your idea or your thought. You may still be holding the space for it. Either way, take that energy and imagine a stone. Imagine a large stone. And put that thought or that idea, that limitation, into that stone. And just allow yourself to see this process. Now imagine an artist coming in and taking a chisel and a hammer and just working that piece of stone. Chipping off piece by piece, bit by bit, to reveal something magnificent, to reveal a piece of art. The artist doesn't see a stone. The artist sees the vision. The artist knows that this is substance with which to create. That there is nothing wrong or ugly about the stone. that in fact it contains the greatest gift. So too does whatever you are lifting up today. Within every adversity lies the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit, a greater gift. This is the process of revealing that gift. And just take a moment to see in your mind's eye what may have been revealed. What gift do you have for me? And bring your attention back to this moment, to this time and space. Allow a statement to come to mind about what you are fasting from for this Lent season. I am fasting from, fill in the blank. And I am knowing that, and put in your affirmation, your truth statement. And bring that affirmation into this moment, into this conscious blessing. We bless this intention. We give thanks for this collective energy. We give thanks that we are expressions of humanity and divinity, that we are tuning in and tuning up, that we care enough to check in on how we show up for ourselves and for the world around us. We ask for all the guidance and the love and support of this great and masterful universe, because we are no longer willing to settle in this department. We are no longer willing to make an agreement with that which is limited. So here we ask for divine assistance. We ask for a mind that is awake and aware and listening with new ears, seeing with new eyes, so that our pattern may be revealed to us, so that we may activate this practice in power-filled ways. And so it is. Friends, have you ever seen someone grow? A lot of research tells us people don't change, that people don't grow. But if you've been around enough and you've gotten close to enough people, you know that that surely is not the spiritual truth. I have had people share stories with me about how they used to be that I would hardly even believe them. Someone that used to be a nervous wreck that is the foundation and the center of grounded peace. Someone that used to be a raging nightmare that is a soothing healer. Someone that used to be sick who is well. Someone who used to be alone and always thinking that there is never enough, that I am not supported, who is the center of love in expression. We can change. We can shift. Sig Paulson, you are a vital part of an evolutionary program that has never stopped, and your role in this program is up to you. The wonderful thing about this experience is that there is not a book that has been written, not even the Bible itself, that can describe what is going to happen, that can tell you exactly what your understanding can be, that can put into words this working knowledge. Once you have reached this point where you are ready to go directly to the light within you, you begin to draw on your own inner Bible. The law written on your inward parts, as the outer Bible phrases it. It means that you must ultimately come to the point in your own individual unfoldment where you are willing to go beyond the book, beyond the institution, beyond human opinion into a direct experience of the light. No one else can take this path for you. No one else can really walk it with you. And yet, all the enlightened souls of eternity walk it with you when you begin your journey. Welcome to the journey. Namaste.